All right, another where do we go from here video. So what now video, Cleveland Browns edition, as the Cleveland Browns are in a weird spot. Where in a lot of ways they're in a tough spot, but at the same time, they had a million injuries and still made the playoffs last year. So they're just in a unique situation. It's worth mentioning they spent more than anybody last season in terms of cash. They spent 64 million over the salary cap last season, and because of that, they might have some tough decisions to make entering this next season. You see their projected cap space and cash, negative in both, and you might be wondering, how are you negative projected in cash? That's not how that works. Is this like a overdraft fee where they have to, they'll charge them $35 or something? No, the projected cash is just a projection, and usually I expect the average team to spend over 10 million over the cap. As I mentioned, that's 50 million shy of what the Browns did last year, so maybe we'll spend another 50 million and be all right. Well, I don't know. So the projection is very much just a rough estimate and it can vary wildly at times, but there is the potential that they will have to maybe get rid of a player to make sure they have the cash to spend on everyone else. Like, that is also something that is a possibility. And in the cap space, negative 8 million actually isn't that bad. They can work with that. It's the cash that's kind of the scary number if you're a Browns fan. So let's talk about their upcoming free agents. Who do they have to sign? Zadarius Smith is the big one. He's the kind of the key guy here. And then, some other players that you could look at that I think you don't want to let them go, but if you do, you can replace them, but you have to spend some money to replace them. Not devastating though. They're okay with their current free agent stuff. Again, you'd like to keep Zadarius Smith in the building. I think everything else, it's not the end of the world if you let them go. So that's kind of where they're at free agency wise. Again, like I mentioned, though, you're kind of in a situation where you want to, might need to save some money and you might need to make some tough decisions. Well, who are some players they could get rid of if they wanted to? A handful of players to bring up, and I want to be clear in that, a Browns fan's head might be exploding when they see Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb on the board. Those are two of their best players, but I'm not saying for those guys, so the number next to their name, that's how many millions it would clear up. You don't cut those guys, right? This is the amount of money you would save if they traded or cut them. So you could, could you get a pick back for Nick Chubb, who's a running back coming off of an injury? That's an option you could think about because you did make the playoffs without him. Maybe you do that if you have to. If the owner says, listen, you got to clear up 10 million, that might be an option you look towards. Or guys like Dustin Hopkins and Elijah Moore, maybe some other smaller moves you can do to clear up some cash. Because again, the salary cap, you can push that down the road. Cash, you can't. Cash is what money you have is the money you have. So that's just another interesting factor. The other thing that they bring up is it's not just about making sure you have the money to keep everyone in the building. The goal is to get better, right? And with their draft capital, that might not be so easy. This is their upcoming draft capital. Not a lot of good picks. Only 2 picks in the top 130. No first rounder. Of course, that's still with the Watson trade. No top 50 pick in general for the Browns. So, 2 top 100 picks, only 0 top 50 picks, and then, a decent amount of top 250 picks, I suppose. But even that, they're actually below the average because due to comp picks, the average team gets 8 selections. They only have 7. So they're not even like, the Los Angeles Rams used to always never have first round picks, but then they had 10 picks down the road. That's not even the Browns' current situation. So probably not going to improve through the draft. And if you're not going to improve with the money you have, well, what might have to happen is, we got to talk about the Deshaun Watson situation, right? This is his current cap hit down the road, and you see, or what I should say is, this is the money you could clear if you got rid of him down the road. His cap hit's obviously going to be very high for a while, and if you got rid of him, you'd be looking at $200 million in dead money. It would add $136 million to your cap, so cutting him is just not even an option at this point. You could, wait 2 years. After 2 years, it would still be $72 million. You're paying him for a while. This is just what it is. You're probably going to have him on the roster for 3 years unless, maybe you do something different. There are other options. This is the current, if you traded him post June 1st, that would be kind of the best case scenario. You actually could get out of it okay. You'd be looking at around $18 million in dead cap for each of the next 3 seasons. That's not total. That's for each of the next 3 seasons. But that's probably the best case scenario. But again, who's willing to do this at this point? Who's willing to take on, first off, not everyone's just going to want Deshaun Watson in the building just because of his off-the-field issues, right? And then the issue of a quarterback who hasn't played very well in 2 seasons now. Are you going to take on what they would have to take on, which would be $46 million for 3 seasons? That would be a tough situation. And of course, as we all know, the Watson contract is fully guaranteed. So this is their current situation. Again, negatives in the cap space and cash, but not a ton of cost to re-sign everybody. And they do have some money that could be freed with $31 million. But again, a lot of that would be tied up to players that they don't want to get rid of. So that is their current situation. How did the Browns get better? Because again, we can see how they could avoid getting worse. I think they can do that. I think that's not an issue. They made the playoffs, and maybe the hope is, hey, get it healthy, Nick Chubb. Hopefully Watson can take a step forward, and then you can make it work. I think Watson playing better just has to be an aspect of if the Browns are going to do anything. For me, if I'm a Browns fan, I didn't put Joe Flacco on the free agency thing, which I should have. If I'm a Browns fan, I want Flacco back in the room. I do. He played well. I'm not expecting Flacco to win you a Super Bowl. I think that would be ambitious, right? Obviously, it worked for Baltimore, but that was over a decade ago at this point. I don't think that's what you're hoping for, but I think at least he could give you some stability if Watson doesn't play particularly great. I think that, if the hope is that Watson finally gets better, because, again, we can say, well, he was rusty. I mean, it's been 2 years at this point. Like, he played. The rusty excuse 2 years ago was a fair excuse. He hadn't played in a while. Comes back. That's a fair excuse. It's not a fair excuse this year. It wasn't good. And, that's an issue. Like, that is something you have to work on. I think that there's other little things they can do to make their team better. And again, I'm not necessarily saying that I think the Browns are going to be bad anytime in the near future, but it does kind of just make you think that until the Watson contract is get outable, which might not be for 3 seasons, they might kind of be stuck in no man's land a little bit, which, hey, Browns fans have experienced worse than no man's land, right? Like, it does get worse, but at the same time, you don't want that. You want to be able to be a Super Bowl champion, and I think what they have to hopefully do is Deshaun Watson has to play better. The other thing I should mention is at least the draft picks they spent for Watson, this is the last year they're losing those. Next year, they're getting draft picks again. So maybe it's one of those situations where if Watson still sucks, maybe next year you try to draft a quarterback and hope that you can get good quarterback value that way, and essentially you lose out on a rookie deal because Watson is getting paid so much, but it almost like negates it in a sense. But at least you would then have kind of a fair contract in a weird way. Maybe that's something you do. I don't know. It's a weird situation, and really the Browns just need Watson to start living up to the contract if they're going to have, I think, a real chance at competing for a Super Bowl. But I think they should still be able to maintain what they were last year, which is a playoff team. That's kind of how I view them, but we'll see how it goes. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.